Chapter 6. Staying on Top. Staying in my prime. Since having entered the gaming world in my teens, I've frequently been asked when I hit my peak. My response is always, right now. Right now, I'm stronger than I've ever been. Otherwise, I wouldn't deserve being called a professional. If I can't become stronger tomorrow than I am today, I don't see the point in even trying. If I'm not continuously growing, I might as well stop competing altogether. Mike Medavoy, a respected Hollywood producer and studio executive with over 4 decades of experience, has said of films that no matter how many you've made, you're only as good as your next one. I strive to embody that remark. I've always believed I was the strongest out there and still do. Grinding in the arcades and always producing results fuels my pride, and continuously one-upping myself gives me confidence. Stay young at heart. Out in the arcades, you can't avoid playing against younger players. Whenever a new game comes out, the younger players are generally strongest at first. Young people tend to pick things up faster because, unlike veterans, they have an unassuming acceptance of new things. It's all about how open you are to new games. Those who enjoy a game for what it is are by far the strongest immediately after a new release. Enjoying the games, not winning at them, enjoying them, comes naturally when we're young, but gets harder with age and experience. Don't reject new things. Accept the lessons they present at face value. It's easy to forget this as we gain more experience and attain a certain position with age. The older and more experienced you get, the more your experience shapes your thoughts. You get caught up in the past and fixed in your ways, unable to shake preconceptions. You start to consider certain things as impossible. In contrast, younger players are unshackled by their preconceptions and thus freer to grow. Their lack of cynicism allows them to decide without hesitation. A veteran player that can't maintain a spirit to learn without making excuses about changing circumstances can't beat youthful exuberance. In the ever-changing world of esports, when players my age start spouting excuses or raving about how things were back in the day, I stop listening. It's far more stimulating to play against younger players than to sit around and listen to that. It's one of the reasons I still insist on going to the arcade. One thing I have begrudgingly accepted is that longtime veterans are sometimes forced by circumstances to hang it up. It gets harder to hit the arcades with age. It gets harder to find the time where money and family situations change. We all weigh daily issues against games, and for most of us, the day comes when real life tips the scales. Being a pro gamer, for me, it's different. I can immerse myself in gaming without concern. While great for me, it does come with the burden of sadly having to part ways with many great players. Play the day after winning. Clinging to past accomplishments makes us weak. Tournament wins tend to overly satisfy us. Much like how you stop studying after a final, winning can make you lax, thinking you can take a break from training. Become complacent and you stop growing. It'll also lower your peers' image of you. It would bother me if others thought I'm slacking off after winning a championship. Like everyone, I am pleased with myself immediately after a big win, but I find my urge to slack off and instead keep my celebrations short. I realize that such joys are fleeting. You can't grow while you're basking in victory. The more I start to feel satisfied with myself, the harder I try to push myself. To keep myself honest, I often wind up staying at the arcade until closing time, especially the day after winning a world championship. I'll fly back to Japan, hauling all my heavy luggage, yet still make it a point to stop by the arcade despite the jet lag and exhaustion. Going to the arcade proves to me that even champions don't win every match. Staying on top and continuing to grow is far harder and more valuable than becoming champion. Once you realize that, you'll stay grounded enough to get out there and challenge others the next day. Become even just a little complacent, and you give your next opponent a chance to close the gap between you. Unless you remain aware of the danger of being overtaken, that championship trophy is meaningless. Number 1, can never run. I've also learned from experience that you can't be satisfied with results. Throughout elementary school, I was always faster and stronger than the other kids and never lost at arm wrestling, even against kids a grade above me. I now see that I just didn't have any real competition around me, but back then, I was rather full of myself. Things were much the same in junior high. Despite me spending my time playing games and the other kids practicing sports every day, They were still no match for me in arm wrestling. I grew conceited, believing my superiority was absolute. The following year, the table started to turn. At first, when I saw them arm wrestling in the back of the classroom, I joined in with the confidence of a reigning champion. However, I wasn't eating properly because doing so cut into my playing time, and it showed. I started to lose weight while the arms of the class athletes kept getting thicker. Determined not to lose, I soon started dodging them like a coward. I was afraid of losing my advantage because I didn't have to train to attain it. If I had worked to attain that strength, losing my edge would simply mean I'd have to put my efforts up to regain it. One day, when they asked me to wrestle, I backed out. Knowing I would lose, I faked like my arm was hurting, but they saw right through my lame excuse. Tomorrow, I'd tell them, but then the next day it'd be the same. I was definitely stronger than my classmates before. Some who I had once pinned in an instant were now the strongest in the class and towering over me. This reversal of roles was a shock. I avoided wrestling the top kids themselves, but eventually, just wanting to gauge my strength, decided to target a kid that was visibly weaker, probably about the 10th strongest in the class. I was utterly outmatched. My classmates were as surprised as me. How had I gotten so weak? Naturally, I had no chance against the top kids anymore. I got pinned in front of everyone. I had become the weakling. The indifference with which I was written off was heartbreaking. It was a humiliating low for me. Once smug in my superiority, I was ashamed at how weak I had become, and furthermore hated myself for avoiding the challenge. The memory of that crushing defeat remains etched in my mind today. About the same time, there was a similar situation building in the gaming community. The Japanese champion in one particular game was avoiding all challengers. His ability and technique were second to none, and yet after winning the championship, he was refusing to play anyone, as if he was afraid of losing. Personally, I had no desire to defeat him myself. I was afraid I was looking in a mirror. Was that what I looked like to everyone when I avoided arm wrestling? The thought of it was unbearably embarrassing. I pledged to never again act so shamefully. Number one can't run and hide. Those close to the top can wriggle out of matches all they want, but number one has to be prepared to take on any challenger straight up at any time. If not, they have no right to call themselves number one. Feeling alive. To me, continual improvement through facing challenges is what it means to be alive. Abandoning growth for momentum isn't my idea of a stimulating life, much less an enjoyable one. Always challenge yourself and make mistakes. Sure, you'll experience lows at times, but you can always recover, especially when you're young. Your energy and strength and youth ensures that you'll get back on your feet. Not that getting older means you can't make mistakes. The point is to not only make mistakes while you're young, but rather to start making them. I want to keep on challenging myself and making mistakes. I hope to keep identifying my faults far into the future. I never look to repeat my mistakes and don't enjoy the lapses themselves, but I never want to fear making them. Starting your missteps from an early age is good for that. Our responsibilities increase with age, and with more responsibility comes concerns that we're one bad mistake away from losing it all. Fear of failure grows from such concerns. Get in the habit of making misadjustments early on, however, and that process of trial and error becomes second nature. It ceases to bother you so much. There's no need to set yourself up for failure. You don't have to fail every time out. The important thing is to know that we learn from our mistakes and that we can only learn from certain things by doing them and making those mistakes. Those who have hit rock bottom and recovered have a different look. You can see the power in their eyes and you can feel their conviction. Keep climbing. I've made countless errors in the past. Having climbed almost every step on the staircase of gaming, I've made plenty of missteps that led me away from success. Anytime you notice a misstep, however, just backtrack a step or two and climb in a different direction. The worst thing you can do is stand still, overanalyzing which way to proceed instead of picking a direction and heading that way. You will advance far more quickly by just climbing, even towards another mistake. Missteps are neither bad nor are they wasted effort. Whether the right step or not, climbing procedures produces a result. Even missteps are gained experience, which will make the climb a bit easier moving forward. Certain things can only be attained by those who dare to climb. While others may feel differently, I've never felt like taking a wrong step didn't work out in the end. I've been owned in the arcades before, but no matter how embarrassed I was, I never let that get me down or stop my ascent. I've always owned up to my mistakes and taken them in stride as a refreshing opportunity to change direction. If you can actively challenge yourself, you should be able to laugh at failure. Other players may snicker at your mistakes today, but they won't in a year or two if you keep challenging yourself. They'll instead forget your mistakes and praise your efforts. Luck. Part of my motivation for writing this book was to share my methods for finding your own way to win, even when luck isn't on your side. In fighting games, the stronger player doesn't always win. The game changes with each decision, and since players don't take turns, you never know what's coming next. You never know if any move will pan out until a split second later. As an easily understandable example, say that landing some move will make or break the game, but doing so involves a large element of luck. It's impossible to know whether your opponent will answer your rock with paper or scissors. Naturally, you can increase the odds of landing an attack if you can read your opponent and pay attention to how the game is playing out. At the higher levels, the accuracy of your read can determine the outcome of the game. But still, no matter how well you understand your opponent, you can't predict every twitch. If things bounce the wrong way, even a mistake on their part could wind up putting you at a disadvantage. Luck has a far greater impact in gaming than in any other competitive field. Because of this, 1 or 2 games aren't enough to determine a true winner. Excluding cases of extraordinarily large gaps in knowledge or skill, short matches won't tell you anything. Say, for example, that you can beat an opponent 70 out of 100 times. In that case, you are definitely stronger than that opponent. The way games go, however, it's entirely possible to lose the first 5 games, which is enough to determine the outcome in many competitions. While luck plays a big part in determining outcomes in fighting games, I try not to think too much about it or its unpredictability. I figure it's best to work diligently on developing your game and pay attention to the finer details of your opponent's moves. In the past, I didn't accept that luck affected my outcome in competition. I loved fighting games and put my all into my matches, and in my mind, any competition involving luck was something to be avoided. At the same time, I always thought I was the best player at any game I played. The way I saw it, I would have won more if Japanese tournaments organizers would abandon their obsession with a single elimination format and replaced it with one that better reflected real ability. As much as I hate admitting it, I used to think that I'd win more if only my luck were better. Then, my thinking started to change. As my outlook expanded, I realized that you can't stay on top by relying on luck. To win consistently, you need to win even when your fortune doesn't favor you. Your resolve must be impervious to misfortune. Only those strong enough to overcome bad luck can attain the skill to render it inert. Like a Chinese war general. As a kid, I loved reading Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a Chinese historical novel set in the end of the Han Dynasty. In it, generals like Lu Bu, Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu always stood at the forefront of battle. While I know the story is highly romanticized, I always yearned to be like those generals leading a vanguard into battle against thousands of troops. My messages to those of you who have fought your way to the top is to stay on the front lines, just like Guan Yu or Lu Bu. That's the mission of the champion. I realize that I won't be able to stay on top forever, and I don't deny that effort can only trump age to a certain point. Still, I chose to become a pro gamer precisely because I want to keep working in spite of those limits. If I'm going to die someday anyway, I want it to be on the battlefield. I'm not the type to take my last breath quietly, holed up in my castle. Just as these warlord generals defied death, I too continue to fight on the front lines of gaming today. Thoughts on the 2016 English edition. I turned 35 this month, and yet I'm still playing fighting games. It's been 25 years since I started, but nothing has changed. My plans are to keep up my childish lifestyle as long as I can and give my best effort, 1 year at a time. The original Japanese version of The Will to Keep Winning, first published in April of 2012, was a bestseller in Japan, and as of May of 2016, is in its 12th printing. As my approach to gaming hasn't changed since, we've decided to leave the content without updating. Here's an update on what's happened in my life since then. Publishing this book and making it into the Guinness Book of World Records completely changed my public image. Now I not only receive invitations to major tournaments, but also offers to give lectures for business people. This year, I signed with a new sponsor, Red Bull. Joining up with my new team of Red Bull athletes has rekindled my competitive spirit and strengthened my resolve. I also joined Twitch as a global ambassador and took on this new challenge in publishing a book in English for the first time. We're currently making our final corrections to the text in a mad rush to finish it in time for EVO in July. When I was growing up, pro gamer wasn't a career option. I never thought I could support myself by playing games. I thus left my fighting game world for a few years, first trying my hand at Mahjong, then working as a caregiver at a nursing home. Apparently, some American gamers even thought I had died. It may seem a roundabout way of doing things, but I needed time away to appreciate the importance of fighting games in my life. Street Fighter V was released this year for home consoles only. For the first time, there are no machines in the arcades. As someone who's been hitting the arcades daily since childhood, playing games at home alone is a desolate experience. I got hooked on fighting games not just from the excitement on screen, but also because I love the arcades and the crowds that gathered there. As a pro, I thus see working to build offline gaming opportunities as one of my responsibilities. While Japanese players remain among the top fighting game players, only allowing us to play games online will make it difficult for us to maintain our edge. It's no surprise to see complete unknowns who didn't play SF4 climbing the podium at SF5 tournaments. As I discussed in this book, success in one game doesn't guarantee success in its sequels. Recently, I don't worry too much about how much time I spend practicing. I did practice SF5 for over 10 hours a day immediately following its release, but recently I've settled back into playing 4 or 5 hours a day and then spending the rest of my day living life. But even when I'm not playing games, I'm thinking about games. Add in this mental aspect and I still probably devote 10 hours a day to gaming. Operating a joystick is second nature to me at this point. I've been using them since I was a kid, and it's not like there are going to be any major innovations in joystick tech, so I don't need to practice that. I haven't changed my playstyle much for Street Fighter V. I'm still more interested in improving my own skill than in winning tournaments. I'm not saying that I don't care whether I win or lose, just that if you're strong enough, the wins will follow. With enough ability, practicing less keeps your mind fresh, which is necessary to get results. Luckily, SF5 is a masterfully crafted game. I sincerely enjoy playing it. Playing it is a pleasure, and only half feels like work. In May of 2016, Japanese satellite channel Wow finally aired as Life as a Pro Gamer, an internationally produced feature-length documentary. The documentary crew followed me closer for a while, along with other pros like Momochi, Choco Blanca, GamerB, Luffy, and Justin Wong. The documentary is of course a production, but it isn't manufactured. There are no lies and no attempts to make esports any bigger than it is. I'd love to see more candid representations of esports like this. Fighting games used to be nothing more than games, but recently they've taken off along with the increased worldwide popularity of esports. This is a good thing, but overly romanticizing the pro gamer life will turn the esports boom into a bust. I don't want prospective gamers to be dazzled with the prospects of status, honor, and prize money. I want them to honestly experience the wonder of esports without making it into something it isn't. I recently donated my entire runner-up prize money of $60,000 from the Capcom Cup Finals 2015 to the EVO Scholarship Fund for the Department of Game Design at New York University. I'm grateful for the opportunities the gaming industry has provided me and wanted to give something back. I know there are younger pro gamers out there struggling like I did, unsure what the future holds, and I want to help them. I'm happy for the support my new sponsor Red Bull provides me, and I hope they're willing to take a chance on some of the new blood out there. We pros depend on a thriving gaming industry to make a living. My motives in donating the money were purely for the gaming industry, but for some reason my actions resonated with my father. No matter how much public praise I get or prize money I win, gaming skill means nothing to my father and others in his generation. After my donation to NYU, 6 years into my pro gaming career, my father paid me a rare compliment. Compliments were rare in my household. Not surprising given all the trouble I put my parents through over the years, so his appreciation made me feel like I've grown as a person. I'm grateful to have gained such a creative, powerful ally in Red Bull and to have this book translated into English so that I can share my ways of life and thinking with a wider audience. In addition to fighting games fans everywhere, I hope that non-gamers will read it and get something out of it. The release of this English edition has made me reflect on what has changed since the Japanese release. While my outlook on life, the fighting game community, and my sponsorship situation have all changed, my commitment to fighting games remains as strong as ever. I'll keep putting in the effort and trying to stay humble so that I can continue to win. Daigo, the Beast Umahara, May of 2016. So that is the end, my friends, the end of our journey with Mr. Daigo Umehara. And hell of a book, right? It's really, really, really good. I guess the thing that I got from this chapter is it spoke to me in a lot of ways, because recently, over the past few months, I kind of took up boxing and tried to get into like martial arts and stuff like that a little bit, and it's about time, right? Like, love fighting games so much, big into competition, all that kind of thing. This is something that I should have like been jumped into, right? And I loved it, man. I felt a lot more like confident about myself, just knowing that when you get into a situation, hopefully you never have to get into a situation like that, but if you have to protect yourself, protect the people you care about, knowing that you have the means to do it, and it's a heck of a thing. And we got to the point where we actually got to our live sparring, and not gonna lie, man, it shook me up a lot. It's kind of like what Daigo talked about with his arm wrestling experience, where he kind of had some natural ability or just a natural strength, but as time went on, he encountered people that were stronger than him, people that had trained more, and it made he ran into a wall, right? He ran into his own weakness. He really had to face it and look at it in the mirror, and it can make you feel so weak and embarrassing, and you can run from it. And I haven't been back to our gym over there in like 3 or 4 weeks, and I know a big part of it's just because I do got a newborn, like I'm in school, like work, all the typical life stuff. But I think that if I'm honest, another part of it is just having to face my own weakness and stuff again, man, having to go up against people that have been doing this for years and just feeling like I don't measure up or I'm not strong enough. And I kind of hit my own wall, and I'm working on basically just self-improvement, get myself back into the right mindset, and I'm not going to give up. I don't plan on giving up, and I know that if it's something where I give up on it, it'll be hard to forgive myself for something that just sticks with me, probably even forever, again, much in the way of what Daigo talked about. So that being said, I, as always, can always relate to the things that he's saying and going through, and it's been great and amazing to get through this with you guys and just see the comments and just interact with one another. And please just leave me some feedback. Let me know what we want to get into next. Like, do we want to look into another audiobook? Are we thinking some more like gaming related material, potentially like our own fighting game series? Just let me know what you guys kind of want to get into together, and I'm always up for something else. I like keeping busy, so I'll talk to you guys in the next one, and thanks for sticking around with me.